Chances are, if you've been in self-development, especially for a while, you'll feel this constant fire under your ass to hurry up and be successful already, hurry up and heal already. You're likely sick of your environment at this point, the patterns that have kept you stuck and the beliefs that have limited you. But even more than that, you are tired of all that self-improving, resorting to self-sabotage. I got into self-development at a vulnerable time in my life. First of all, I was young, too young, in fact, and disconnected from myself and the world. And I was starting to realize how little influence I had over my circumstances. Looking back, I was thrown into a world I was not ready for. But when you become aware that your potential is slipping through the cracks in your environment, an environment you didn't even create, sooner or later, you will be presented with a choice. Succumb to those circumstances or refuse to be defined by them. I quickly caught on that if I don't take my self-development seriously, I will become a product of my environment. Just like all the people that I resented for taking away my mental clarity, emotional stability, and the ability to love myself. Because at the time, I really felt like the only thing that I had was my belief in who I knew I was or who I believed I could be, the life I would have if it wasn't for everything and everyone holding me back. And realizing that vision became my obsession. The tools and the guidance in my immediate environment were not available to me. So I turned to the internet, where I discovered a whole world of self-help. Naturally, I got sucked in as the years went on and the content got way better, and soon became obsessed with learning as much as I could. Admittedly, I got lost in all of it. I became incredibly impatient when I couldn't implement what I was watching, and as a result, I would frequently change my mind on what's really wrong or what I really need to do, as frequently as I would flip through my recommended list on YouTube. My lowest moments were when I would look back at my life and see that after years of this, I've gotten nowhere. I had so much knowledge up here that I conceptually understood, that I felt like I really grasped these concepts, but that's where they stayed. And it was to the point where I couldn't discern if I was consuming content to apply it or if I was consuming content to just feed the image I had of myself without having to actually do anything. Because something started happening. Every time I failed to consistently implement what I was seeing work for so many people online, I was reminded that I'm not those things right now, that I wasn't my potential, I wasn't my dreams, I was not even all that knowledge that I hoarded. Those things were time and time again proving they weren't enough. My identification with who I wanted to be was the only thing that gave me the will to improve in the first place. Every time I fell off the goal, the discipline, or whatever I was trying to do at the time, I would just click on another video that would give me another approach, which I would then say to myself, this is it. This is what I really need to focus on. This is what I really need to do, until it wore off and I was back where I started. Given enough time, this nagging stagnation, this cycle of stuckness, it would eat away at anybody. And before you know it, you'll look around and wonder, will it ever get better? Because we all start off wide-eyed and mesmerized until the growing pains kick in, right? Until we realize what it's really going to take. Eventually, all of this caught up to me. So I took a break and I started deliberating, like really deliberating, really taking apart where I was going wrong, where apparently many of us were going wrong. Because in my quest, I found out that I was not the only one, that self-help was filled with people who were getting nowhere, which was so odd. You know, we have all this accessible content that's inspiring us and informing us on how to change our lives. And it comes in all forms too. You know, are you the academic type, the esoteric type, just browsing? There's something for you. So why wasn't it working? I know it's easy to blame it on laziness, fragility, or not wanting it bad enough. But after observing this space for so long and talking to so many people about their experience, I found it was something else entirely. In fact, what I found not only gave me closure on why all this wasn't working for me, but it showed me where the problem was stemming from. I don't know if you've caught on to this as well, but one of the paradoxical aspects of self-help is having to embody both the helper and the one who needs the help, which right off the bat, you can see how difficult that is, especially if you are in an environment that maintains you in a helpless state, or if you're not stable enough to show up for yourself in the ways that you need the most. A direct result of that is staying in the bliss point. This term is used in so many industries, from the food industry to the dating industry, but across the board, it means the same thing. It's combining just the right amount of this with just the right amount of that to satisfy you to a point that keeps you wanting more. For the self-help industry, the bliss point is the over-identification with the goal, the dream, the desired self, while being disconnected from what it really takes to get there. Yes, it starts off unintentional, especially because content is set up to be on a pedestal. You know, otherwise it wouldn't be aspirational to us. But there comes a point where the awareness kicks in and you know what you're doing. You know that clicking on one more video is not going to get you closer to your goal. Rather, it will keep you in that bliss point of learning to start a business which feels like progress without having to actually experience the discomfort of starting your business. Hey, it's voiceover Yasmin here. I put this diagram together to paint a picture of how you keep coming back to and staying stuck in the bliss point. There is a lot going on here, appropriately, since this is a chaotic and cyclical experience. So let me break down what everything is before I show you exactly what happens. The first thing I want to draw your attention to is, of course, the bliss point itself. Quite hypnotic, isn't it? This is where most of us are starting from, especially if you've been developing yourself for some time now. When you are here, you will feel a combination of two things. One is a false sense of expansion because you are consuming material that teaches you how to become the person you want to be, or material that affirms that you are already this person. And the other is comfort, because nothing has been done. And what a comfortably exciting place to be until it starts to feel suffocating, because nothing is happening. The bliss point lives on this plane, the plane of consumption. The more you consume feel-good content without doing anything with it, the longer you will stay stuck here. Constant consumption is what feeds the bliss point. So what happens when you decide to make a move? There are usually two directions people go, up or down. Up being the positive polarity or following higher emotion like inspiration, motivation, excitement, conviction in yourself, and so on. Or down, the negative polarity or leaning into lower emotions like shame, anger, frustration. What makes this experience so exhausting is how often you fluctuate between the two because they eventually lead into each other. Let's take an example of someone who follows the positive polarity first. After consuming a bunch of self-help content, they feel charged to make some ambitious moves towards their goals. They are going to change their mindset, wake up early, go to the gym, eat right, journal, read, meditate. Whatever it is, 9 times out of 10, from the rush they feel, they hyperextend themselves. Once the discomfort of that kicks in, it comes crashing down. They took on more than they can handle because they over-identified with the vision. The confidence in the vision wears off, of course, so they make their way back to the bliss point to recharge with, you guessed it, aspirational content. And you can reverse this, by the way. You can consume to form the vision, over-identify with it, and then hyperextend until the reality of what it takes kicks in, and all you want to do is crawl back in your bliss bubble. Do this enough times, and out of sheer exhaustion, you'll take the negative polarity route, where the lack of progress is so overpowering, you are jolted out of the content cycle and into the awareness of how stagnant you've been, which feels so shameful. You become incredibly frustrated and decide enough is enough. I'm going to change my life, but first, I have to learn how and how to feel good about my path again, especially after all that shame that I felt. So guess what? You are back to consumption. You may bypass the bliss point to hop on the positive polarity track again by either ambitiously attempting everything you want to be all at once or by affirming your vision. But either way, it's going to lead you back to the same place because none of this was calibrated to the way you actually integrate new ideas and behaviors, which is exactly what I'll be discussing in my next video. Regardless of whichever way you do this, this is how so many people feel. And when you see it right in front of you like this, when you look at the chaos of this process, it's no wonder you're stuck. This is where we must take responsibility because there's no one else to blame for that. That's on us. And I know it doesn't feel good to sit with that guilty feeling. And quite frankly, I'm tired of feeling it as well without doing anything about it because I still want to consume informative content, but only in a way that doesn't perpetuate my stuckness, rather in a way that accelerates my development because that's why I'm consuming it. In order to do that, we have to find those gaps that we keep falling into and develop tools and frameworks that strengthen our discernment so we have more footing when we go into another self-development phase. After spending these past few months developing these tools and ways to apply them, I realized they all have the same core. These tools are meant to be objectively analytical about what's out there while being compassionately curious about what's in here. Because I know it's controversial, but I don't believe laziness or the unwillingness to become better is ever the real reason people don't improve their lives. I actually see those as excuses to prematurely end the conversation on how we can refine the way that we teach or understand the way that we learn. Putting it on those reasons removes any opportunity to extract value from what they're really pointing to, which is our ignorance. Not ignorance on what to do, because we can all agree we know what we should be doing. We're not that oblivious these days. So no, it's ignorance for what moves us. People are oblivious to what moves them, and even more so, how to leverage what moves them to create momentum in their desired direction. Because the most powerful way to self-help is to leverage who you currently are. Because that is what gets you sustainably moving harmoniously instead of chaotically, which is what happens when you identify with the thing that you aren't right now. Once I realized this, my self-development journey became so much more pleasant because I accepted who I was right now and what I can realistically do right now. I learned to discern between content that aligns with me and content that does not. And the most valuable thing I learned was my specific blueprint of how I integrate new ideas and behaviors that I aspire to consistently have in my life. Which is why I'm dedicating the next 3 videos on how to do just that. The first video of the series is the foundation for the series, so I definitely recommend you watch that one first. Each video is going to introduce a tool, and the best part about these tools is that they're all about leveraging who you currently are. You don't have to change anything about who you are right now, because that's where all the magic is. Because believe it or not, you have just the right amount of resources within you to make a lot of progress in a really short time. Because most people watching this are 20, 30, maybe 40 years old. Do you really think that in all that time you've come out with nothing you can work with? Of course there's something. And I'll argue it's more powerful than you think. So that's why the first video is all about discovering what moves you, why does it move you, and how do you work with that. I call this integral understanding. It's figuring out exactly what it is that you need to intuitively take the ideas that you like and sustainably implement them. We have to address this one first, because knowing how to do that will make things like creating habits so much easier. And speaking of habits, the second video breaks down self-discipline content, the king of self-development. I break down the 3 types of self-discipline content: mindset work, behavior hacking, and manifestation. What is it that they all do right, and where most people fall off? Why does that happen? And some ways to combat that. In that video, I used the detect, deconstruct, and discern framework that I introduced in my intentions video. Except this time, I will teach you how to break down any kind of content and extract exactly what it is that aligns with you and your unique growth journey. Basically, this video is a practice in discernment. The last video, I am really excited about this one. I wanted to dedicate an entire video to the different types of self-development consumers. That would be you. And no one talks about this. What's your temperament? What's your complex? This is so crucial. There are nuances in your history, in your approach. You might struggle in a different area than someone else and in a different way. So I've created 3 temperaments to help you zero in on where those issues might be coming from. Are you an under budgeter, an adapter, an overrider? You're about to find out. Content is not one size fits all, so I am really excited to go over this tool with you, because it will also explain why certain things did not work for you in the past. Yeah, I think that's everything I wanted to cover today. So if you find all of that interesting, next week's video will be on integral understanding, and that's how we will kick off our series. So I hope to see you there. And yeah, thank you so much for watching. Bye.